Good afternoon. You've all heard the sage advice about staying at least a couple steps ahead of the airplane, and this becomes even more critical in IMC conditions. Today, we're going to discuss leading and lagging metrics in your business. Stay tuned. Greetings and welcome, everybody. This is our weekly discussion on marketing at 30,000 feet. I am your co-host, Chris Kiocha. I've got Doug Foley with me. Doug, how are you?
I am awesome. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, and I'm actually even more pumped up for today's episode because we've had so many discussions with some clients and some prospects and leads, and just good educational knowledge being spread that people are starting to finally realize why we do the things the way we do. And it just, today again, I think it just perfectly encapsulates all of that. So I'm excited to share with our audience.
You know, I love anytime we get to geek out about numbers and data and how to make more informed decisions. So I am pumped for today.
Yeah. And going into kind of what we're talking about here, if you're just tuning in again, we're talking about, in the airplane, pilots, whenever you fly with an instructor pilot or any other pilots, you've all heard the advice again of staying ahead of the airplane. And for the non-flying types out there, what that means is you're always looking at indications that you're coming into that's going to affect the condition of your plane, in the not so distant future. And in particular in IMC conditions, and that's instrument meteorological conditions, because when you're in IMC, you don't have visual references, to let you know where you're going. You're completely relying on your instrumentation, the data that's being provided to you through your avionics in the cockpit. And so what that does is it conditions your mind to not only be aware of where you're at, where the airplane is at now in that time and in space, but also where it's going to be, again, like I said, in the future. And if you wait until you reach a fix or a waypoint where an action is required before thinking about it, you'll always find yourself behind the airplane. And a lot of people wonder, how can you prevent this from happening? And really, just like in the airplane, in business, our method is to continually ask yourself one of two questions or both questions. What are you waiting for? And what will I do when it happens? And we all know, again, in the airplane, that is really detrimental to the safety of flight. And in your business, it could also actually be detrimental to your overall business. So that's a little bit of some context to staying ahead of the airplane and then staying ahead of leading and lagging metrics, in particular as it relates to marketing. So
the thing I find ironic, if you were to look up leading and lagging indicators, they will tell you leading indicators are like looking through the front window. Lagging are like looking behind. So the irony and the integration with flight is why we were so excited to talk today. But the hard part I find is most business owners don't know what to look at in which order. And it's ironic because over the last 2 months, two of our clients in particular, we were working through a tactics audit, and we helped them refine their sales process to delineate what do we need to have from an activity level, and those are more related to the leading indicators, and then what are we watching in terms of the metrics and the success. So to break this down in simple form, I would say most of your leading indicators are the activity levels. Prospecting calls, what you're doing on social, like the daily activity of posting or commenting or engaging with an audience. The lagging indicators tend to be the things that follow. So the result of the activity you took. So for example, if you decided, hey, we're going to double down, we're going to create a podcast, much like we are. We then start to look at, after we've produced the episodes, how many leads did we generate? What were our views? What are things we need to adapt to make the next ones different? But I think most business owners just don't look at the data in general, and they start to lose the impact of how important it is to focus on the activities, the leading indicators that drive results. And so they end up just trying something for very, very short period of time and not giving enough runway for it to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and the concept of leading and lagging indicators obviously is not new to anybody. It has many applications in business, accounting, and management. But in the marketing realm, the concept, it's a very critical starting point when evaluating the effectiveness of the marketing program. And, as Doug has mentioned, from our experience, we know that it takes approximately about 6 months to see meaningful results from your program. Now, it could be more or less than those 6 months, depending on the effectiveness of previous campaigns, previous programs, obviously budget, and where content is delivered within that content marketing strategy, which is kind of our digital flight plan, which is the result of the tactics audit. So as a good guideline, again, a good rule of thumb is the 6 months is typically a good thing in there, because again, you don't want to set something in motion and not see the entire cycle of it through. And especially we know in our industry, the sales cycle is much longer than let's say a typical e-commerce type thing where, it may be 4 to 6 weeks for a sales cycle. Our sales cycles are 12 to 18 months, sometimes even longer. So to only take a biopsy of 3 months of a campaign of an entire sales cycle, you're completely neglecting the lagging indicators that Doug had mentioned. You're not doing your sales cycle and the marketing justice to allow that entirety of the cycle to come through. So because of this typical timeline, again, you have to focus on leading indicators throughout the program to gauge your progress and to confirm that your program is moving in the right direction. That's the beauty of digital, is that you can be dynamic. You can measure every step of the way, just like you would in the airplane on a flight plan. Again, when you're looking at waypoints or mile markers, all that stuff, and you're measuring the performance at each stage, so that way you can assess your program success and ultimately reach the destination you want to go.
One of the reasons I really encourage businesses, especially in the B2B space, to look at leading and lagging indicators is it forces you as a business to bridge the gap between sales and marketing. You have to look at it holistically from the perspective of what did we do in marketing that then transferred over to sales, and how did the correlation end in a net result? And if you have any scientific background, you're basically going to take a hypothesis and say, we want to test this new growth lever. So for example, it may be we're going to increase our existing customer spend by 30% by the end of the quarter. And if you focus on just that one core goal or metric, then it's simply, okay, in order to do this, here are the activities we're going to make. So our sales team is going to do customer outreach a minimum 2 days a week, and they're going to contact 5 customers. And we're going to send out a new email. So there are the leading activities to impact that goal you have to do. And then the lagging is, okay, over like the last quarter, we've been doing these things. How did they change it? Did we see an increase? Are we headed in the direction of moving the needle based on that goal? Mm-hmm. But I find too many people, they try to do tactical things like, oh, we're going to do one thing. We're going to try Google ads, or we're going to try Facebook ads. But they don't look at it relative to a simple goal they're trying to accomplish. And unless you have something that's really clear that you're trying to impact in a business, it's hard to know what you're measuring against or what you need to do. So getting real clarity and developing a plan on a growth lever you're trying to impact will make using leading and lagging indicators that much more effective.
Yeah. And again, just to emphasize again, that's why we start, anytime we begin a new partnership or a new engagement with anybody, it always starts with the content marketing strategy and that, the tactics audit, which evolves into your digital flight plan. Because again, without having that blueprint of a progression of why we're doing the things we do, how, as Doug mentioned, how one lever, in this phase affects this phase later on down the road. When you see that correlation and you start to see, again, those leading indicators yield the results you want in the lagging indicators, it's almost like that aha moment. Like if we can pull this level even more, if we can make more of this happen, more of this should happen down the road. Then your sales cycle and everything becomes predictable at this point, which is the beauty of things. You remove the hope is a strategy type thing, because we know, again, in business, and especially in our industry, again, because it's such high stakes, you're dealing with high ticket items. Having those things, having them be predictable, having your sales team be completely aware of where the customer is in that journey and what they need to give them to help, again, get them closer to ultimately that bottom of the funnel type thing, which ultimately, again, we want to know is the transaction. It's so critical and so important. And that's where that alignment comes with the sales and marketing. And then everybody just buys into this new, it's not even new. It's just a more thorough, transparent way of conducting business. And you're utilizing the digital tools of today and the technologies we have today to just make your sales cycle more efficient.
I knew I would love today's episode, because I think most of the clients and the people watching, if they just focus on slowing down and looking at the right data, much like you do when you're flying to make sure you stay ahead of the plane, business is a lot easier to scale. And it's a lot easier to see if you're going the right way, the wrong way, if there's a pending danger.
Yeah. Yeah. And the whole premise of slowing down for fundamentals, I mean, if you haven't flown instruments in a while, like you got to go back and focus on your BI, your basic instrument flying. Again, because you don't want to over control the airplane. Just like in business, you don't want to over control campaigns. Like I said, somebody turns on Google AdWords, right? And they see it run away for, 2 weeks, 30 days, whatever. And they're like, oh, this isn't working. And they shut it off. Well, you didn't really have that plan in place for what you want to go again, and how that one specific lever can affect, where your business is at down the road. And so I can't emphasize enough, again, having the tactics audit, having the digital flight plan all mapped out for you, and do that. Now, Doug, I know we've mentioned a lot of these leading and lagging indicators, but maybe we can harp on, I don't want to say harp, but maybe we can discuss for those out there, what are some of those indicators, that they can relate to in their business? And if you're tuning in or you're watching live right now, put in the comments, like, what are some of your leading and lagging indicators that you focus on in your business? But, when you set these goals in advance, this is how you track your progress as your marketing campaign or your program begins to really take off. And that's where the leading indicators, come into play to evaluate that progress. So some of these leading indicators, Doug had mentioned might be outreach phone calls, right? It may be growing your social media audience, even though some of those can be a little vanity. If we want to get more technical, keyword positioning, website traffic, there's reputation management, there's maybe form fills out there, again, which we're all driving traffic to. Are there any other ones, Doug, that you could think of as far as leading indicators that people may consider for their business?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, one, just understanding the framework really clearly. So a leading indicator is an activity or an action you're going to take today that will have an impact or influence a lagging indicator. So for example, you gave number of outreach phone calls. That's going to obviously increase the number of leads or the number of sales or a closing ratio. So it's really important to understand, like, one, get really, really clear on the goal. And there's a lot of different goal frameworks like SMART goals. So understanding that they're really clear, they have their time bound, like being really specific about your goal, and then developing, okay, what are the actions that we're going to test? And then the lagging indicators are, how are we measuring it? Yeah. So generally speaking, you're going to have marketing activities. Those will be the things you're going to do: create, promote, push. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to have your sales activities. Like, what are we going to do daily, weekly, monthly? Might be outreach, might be messaging, might be attending events. But just getting really clear on the plans and measuring the effectiveness and understanding the framework, I think, is equally as important as dialing down just the individual specific things, because it'll be different for each business. But if you want a really simple one, I would use sales, for example. So I want to increase sales by 10%. You may say, we're going to create 2 pieces of content for LinkedIn each week. And then the sales activity is we're going to engage with that content. I'm going to share that content. I'm going to email to 5 people every week. There's like a simple framework of like how marketing and sales can work together. And then we look at, okay, did people engage with this content? Did that content then drive a lead to the webinar that we're promoting? Yeah. So it's just trying to map out whatever that customer journey looks like. What are we trying to elicit in the goal? And then what are the actions, the leading indicators that we're going to do to try to affect the net outcome?
Yeah. And when you look at the ROI, again, like the beauty of going digital is that you can go even deeper to find the original source of those leads that converted into sales or whatever that lagging indicator is. You know, did these new customers come through our blog, social media, another source? And then you start to see again, like that customer acquisition cost. When you're monitoring this, you're able to know what the full customer acquisition cost is and tying revenue back to the original source. That's going to help guide you of where to invest resources moving forward as your sales and marketing programs continue to build and evolve. And that is why monitoring the leading and lagging metrics, all these KPIs that we talk about, is absolutely vital to growing your business, because this way you're not wasting resources in areas that might not be yielding as much as you need. Again, because we all know that because of COVID and whatever else may be down the pipeline, we all know is that, you know, we've got to be more efficient with our time and resources, our people. And this way, again, by mapping that out, you know how to specifically allocate those resources appropriately in those arenas that's going to yield the highest ROI, which ultimately makes the bosses happy, shareholders happy. Everybody's just generally happier when there's more margin in there, right?
Absolutely. Chris, this was an awesome one.
Yeah. So I feel like we could go on this forever talking about leading and lagging metrics, but you know, just to kind of summarize again, like make sure that you know that what you're doing today, you know, what lever is that what actions is that going to take to affect your business or your campaign, you know, down the road, and make sure you have that process documented. Make sure you understand, you know, that destination that you're wanting to go and all the things that have to happen. You know, when you overlay your sales cycle, when you look at that nurturing, all those things that have to happen to get to that lagging metric. Again, whether Doug had mentioned it's an appointment booked, it's a demo that's being done, it's a new client, it's a new sales or revenue generated, whatever that is. Make sure you have that process documented. And if you need help, you know what? That's why we're here. You know, we will sit down and do the tactics audit with you to help you map that framework out so you can see how what you're currently doing fits in with that overall picture. And then we'll show you the digital flight plan, which essentially, again, is your entirety of your sales cycle. We'll show you how that all fits into your business in this new this new digital way where you can utilize all these tools and resources that are at your fingertips. So again, shoot us a message, drop us a note, let us know how we can help you. Doug, you got anything else for the people today?
No, fly safe today.
Fly safe. Yeah, we'll say blue skies and tailwinds ahead. So I hope you guys found this helpful. If you find this helpful, again, you know, like, share, comment. We really want to help as many businesses and as many people as we can be better and more efficient at their jobs, because, you know, the reason why we started this and when started offline so long ago is like we realized the potential for growth in this industry was really, really great. You know, and the more that businesses can do, the more that this industry can go, the more opportunities it creates for people to bring people into this industry, both from the consumer side and the talent side. This industry, again, in my opinion, is the apex industry, and everybody deserves a chance to be a part of this. And, you know, I want to do our part to see this industry grow, to get more opportunities and more people in the door.
Absolutely.
So, all right, y'all take care. Have a great day.
See you, everybody.